Have you ever woken up tired without even having done anything? The day has barely begun and your mind is already racing. Thoughts about the past keep coming back. Worries about a future that doesn't even exist yet. Fears that have no name but weigh on you as if they were real. And in the midst of all this, a strange feeling that something inside you is out of place. This has a name. It's mental noise, and it's more common than you think. Millions of people around the world live exactly like this, trapped inside their own heads in a seemingly endless cycle. They wake up thinking, they go to sleep thinking, and in the middle of the day, between one task and another, the negative thoughts return like a wave that doesn't ask permission. You try to ignore them, you try to distract yourself, but they're still there. The problem isn't weakness, it's not a lack of faith. It's that no one taught us how to care for our minds in the right spiritual way. We learn to care for our bodies, we learn to work, we learn to relate to others. But the mind is left adrift in the turmoil, without direction, without protection, without peace. And when the mind is in chaos, everything around seems chaotic too. Relationships become burdensome, decisions become confusing, faith seems distant. But here's something that perhaps no one has told you clearly. God sees what's happening inside you, not just your actions, not just your words. He sees your thoughts. He knows every layer of your mind, those you show to the world, and those you hide even from yourself. And He's not far from it. He's right there in the middle of the noise, waiting for an opening. The Word says in Psalm 139, "You know when I sit down and when I get up, you perceive my thoughts from afar." God isn't surprised by the state of your mind. He already knew. And if you're here now, perhaps it's not a coincidence. Perhaps it's the beginning of something that will change not only what you think, but who you are. What if everything weighing on your mind could truly be cleansed by God? There is a moment that often goes unnoticed, silent, almost invisible. It's the moment when you, deep in your heart, decide to open up. It might be in tears for no apparent reason. It might be in a wordless prayer. It might simply be a deep sigh from someone who can no longer bear to carry it alone. And it is precisely at that point of vulnerability, that God begins to act. Not with noise, not with thunder, with a gentleness that surprises. Because God doesn't invade, He is invited. And when you open the door, even just a crack, He enters. And He begins, silently, the process of spiritually cleansing your mind, removing what doesn't belong to you, organizing what was in chaos, bringing light to the darkest places within you. The story of Paul gives us one of the most powerful images in the Bible about this. Before he was called Paul, he was called Saul. And Saul was not a man lost in mediocrity. He was intelligent, religious, full of convictions. But his mind was consumed by a distorted certainty. He thought that persecuting Christians was serving God. He imprisoned people. He approved executions. He lived with a mind full of violence disguised as zeal. And then, on the road to Damascus, something happened that he neither asked for nor expected. A light from heaven struck him down, and in the midst of that light, a voice. "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" Acts 9:4. At that moment, everything he thought he knew crumbled. But notice what God did next. He didn't discard Saul. He didn't destroy him. He began to transform him. 3 days in the dark, without sight, without food, without drink. And in those 3 days, God cleansed the mind of a man who had caused so much harm. When Ananias arrived and prayed for him, the scales fell from his eyes, not only from his physical eyes, but also from the eyes of his mind. Paul left that room as a new person. The same intelligence, the same intensity, but now directed by a mind renewed by God. And this man, with a transformed mind, wrote half of the New Testament. And you? Perhaps your mind is also carrying distorted certainties. Beliefs you've built up over the years about yourself, about God, about what you deserve or don't deserve. Perhaps you don't even realize how much these thoughts have controlled your choices. But God sees. And just as he met Paul on the road to Damascus, he can meet you now, not with judgment, but with a gentle question that changes everything. Why do you keep carrying that? Because there's something happening in your mind right now that you can't see yet. And when you understand what it is, nothing will ever be the same. Nobody told you that there's a battle going on inside you. A real battle, not metaphorical, not poetic, real. The Bible isn't afraid to say it explicitly. It's written in 2 Corinthians 10:4. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds. Strongholds. That's the term the word uses to describe thought patterns that take root in the mind and refuse to leave. A mental fortress isn't a passing thought. It's a thought you've thought so many times that it's become a belief. I'm worthless. This will never change. God doesn't care about me. I don't deserve to be happy. These thoughts didn't appear overnight. They were built, brick by brick, experience by experience, word by word that someone said or that you yourself said. And now they seem true, but they aren't. This is where the battle intensifies, because when God begins to work in your mind, negative thoughts resist. They fight to stay. They try to convince you that renewal isn't possible, that you're a lost cause, that change is for others. And the worst part, they use your own voice to do it. It's the voice of doubt, the voice of shame, the voice of fear. And confusing that voice with your own is one of the enemy's greatest tricks. But God begins to replace, little by little, with truth, with the Word, with a peace that defies rational understanding, that peace which Philippians 4:7 describes as something that it surpasses all understanding. It's not a peace you gain by thinking better. It's a peace that God installs, like a spiritual antivirus that sweeps away, one by one, the corrupted files in your mind and reinstalls the truth of who you really are. The liberation of the spiritual mind is not an event. It is a process of war and surrender at the same time. You fight, but not alone. You resist, but with the armor of God. And every time you choose the Word instead of destructive thoughts, you are gaining ground. Every prayer is a breakthrough. Every moment of silence before God is a stronghold being torn down. The battle is real, but the outcome has already been decided. The transformation of the mind doesn't happen overnight. There's no spiritual reset button you can press and suddenly everything is clean and orderly. The renewal of the mind in God is a continuous daily process, sometimes too slow for our eyes, but too constant to be ignored. And understanding this changes everything. Because many people give up precisely when the process is still happening, thinking that nothing has changed. The Word says in Romans 12:2, to do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Notice, it's an active instruction. Be transformed. It's not something that happens to you while you stand still. It's something that happens to you as you participate. And how do you participate? Through faith that acts. Through the Word that is read and meditated upon. Through prayer that is not a performance, but a real conversation with God. Through the daily choice not to let negative thoughts sit and drink coffee in your mind. A mind renewed by the Word of God is not a perfect mind. It is a directed mind, a mind that has learned to filter, that recognizes when a thought does not come from God, that knows how to say, this thought is not mine, I will not follow it. It is a spiritual muscle that is being trained, and like any muscle, it hurts at first. At first, it seems like it's not working, but with time, the strength appears. Hey, if this content is touching your heart, take this opportunity to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. This helps this message reach more people who need to hear exactly this. A prayer to clear the mind doesn't need to be elaborate. Sometimes it's just, God, I can't control what I'm thinking. but I surrender it to you. Come in here. That's enough, because God doesn't demand eloquence. He demands sincerity, and when you pray with an open heart, something moves. Not always dramatically. Sometimes it's just a subtle lightness you didn't know you were expecting, a thought that loses its power, a memory that hurts less, a morning that begins differently without you knowing exactly why. The process is happening, even when you don't feel it, even when it seems to be standing still. God is working in the deepest layers of your mind, and when you see the result, you will understand that every day was worthwhile. There comes a moment when it arrives, and when it arrives, you know, not with alarm, not with celebration, but with a quiet certainty that settles within you, like the sun that rises slowly and illuminates everything without haste. It's the moment when you realize that the thought that once brought you down now simply passes, that the pain you carried for years has become lighter, that the voice that told you you were worthless has become weaker, and in its place something new begins to speak. It's the healing of the mind through faith becoming real in your life, not theoretical, real. You haven't changed your circumstances, but you've changed your perspective, and perspective changes everything. The same problem that once seemed like an insurmountable wall, now you look at it and think, God has already gone through greater things than this. I'm not alone here. That's the transformation of the mind in God working in practice. It's subtle, it's profound, and it's permanent. Isaiah 26:3 says, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you." Perfect peace, not partial peace, not peace only on good days. Perfect peace for those who keep their thoughts fixed on God. And this is not mysticism, it is a concrete biblical promise. The peace that God brings, mental clarity, is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of God being greater than any problem. The mind that was once a battlefield begins to become a meeting place with God, with one's own identity, with a peace you may never have truly experienced. Thoughts don't all disappear at once, but you learn not to follow each one of them. You learn to choose, and this choice, repeated day after day, builds a new mind, a mind that endures, a mind that rests, a mind that trusts. The liberation from negative thoughts is not the end of the journey. It is the gateway to a completely different way of living. When light replaces darkness in your mind, something changes in your speech, your gaze, your decisions, your relationships. People around you notice it even before you do, because a mind transformed by God radiates something that has no human explanation. And we've saved something especially for the end of this video. A biblical revelation that will wrap things up in a way you won't forget. Stay with us. We've arrived at the point we promised from the beginning. And before getting here, you've been through it all. The noise, the opening, the battle, the process, the light coming in. Now it's time to understand what all of this means for your entire life. Because when God transforms the mind, He's not just fixing up a room in the house. He's rebuilding the foundation. And everything on top of that foundation changes along with it. Mental peace with God is not a temporary state of mind. It's a new way of being. You begin to make different decisions, not on impulse, not out of fear, not due to external pressure, but from a mind aligned with the Spirit of God. You begin to speak differently, to react differently, to see the people around you with different eyes, including those who once hurt you. The emotional and spiritual healing that begins in the mind spreads to relationships, to work, to family, to how you see yourself in the mirror. And here is the biblical revelation we have kept for you. In Philippians 4:8, Paul, who wrote this letter from inside a prison, says, "Whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable." Think about these things. Paul wasn't on an island of peace when he wrote this. He was in chains, and yet he taught the secret of a renewed mind, the deliberate choice of what you feed it, because the mind becomes what it consumes. And when you intentionally decide to feed it with what is true and pure, it begins to produce fruits you never imagined possible. This is the transformation of the mind in God, reaching its most powerful conclusion: a new life. Not a life without difficulties, but a life where difficulties no longer have the last word. A life where you wake up, and even before checking your phone, you already know that God is in control. A life where the noise has been replaced by a clear, firm, loving voice that says, "I'm with you, don't be afraid." If this video touched you deeply today, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who is struggling with their own thoughts right now. Leave a comment below telling us what you're feeling, what God has been doing in your mind. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now is the time. There's much more content like this coming to strengthen your faith, renew your mind, and transform your life. I conclude with the timeless words from Isaiah 41:10. "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Your mind no longer needs to be a battlefield. It can be a place of peace, and God has already begun that work in you.